How much is your closed mind costing you? That's the discussion I'm going to have with two of the most open-minded farming guys I know, Kelly Garrett and Jason Mauck, in this episode of The Granary.
You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? The best part? You're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Granary. Hey, guys.
All right, guys, you heard the topic. It came up just last week on an internet situation, on a social media feed, I should say. A person started popping off saying, now I found another person I'll never listen to, and he's talking about Kelly Garrett. And this guy's a Kentucky farmer, and he's become friends now with Kelly because he was popping off like people do, keyboard warrior. You know, everybody's tough when they can just do this. Popping off that Kelly, didn't understand where he farms, and you don't understand. Farmers love to do this, Jason. You're one of the most open-minded farming people I know. I've had you on my Business of Agriculture show twice because you're always trying some entrepreneurial thing, something the coffee shop crowd won't do, something you get judged for. And at some point, you're like, hey, you can be as close-minded as you want, but it ain't going to make you a lot of money. So Jason Mauck, by the way, Delaware County, about 50 miles south of here. You've done some kind of outrageous stuff. How much is the closed mind costing your neighbors that it's not costing you? Because they're going to say, yeah, well, you know what? I might be closed-minded, but I didn't do this and lose money on this stupid venture that Jason did.
I don't think that they're really losing much money yet, but I think as agriculture changes in the future and we lose that guarantee, then people are going to be scrambling to what to do next. And they're going to be in a position where there's fear there because they hadn't got off the corn and bean train.
So I took it personal. I'm more of a hothead. You did take it. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a hothead. And a guy's a smart mouth than you on his keyboard warrior. And I just thought this guy's a closed-minded dum-dum and let him twist in the wind. Instead, you adopt him, took him under your wing and befriended him. I think I already blocked him. But anyway, no, that's okay. A lot of people in agriculture, it'll never work here. That'll work for you, but it doesn't work for me. Oh, I tried that. I tried that back in 1993, and it's always something. And at some point you say, you're either experienced, you know what you're talking about, or you're just being closed-minded. Which one is it?
People can be closed-minded, and then, a lot of times people can say things sarcastically, which is a poor way to communicate, in my opinion. And when that happened on social media, I just direct messaged him, and I said, maybe we should talk about this in a phone call. I think you're missing the point. And then he called. He said he reread the message. He apologized, which that's rare. I would give him credit for that. He said, that didn't come off the way I meant it to be. I apologize for the way it sounded. And we talked about things, and now he is in Kentucky, not too far from Johnny, and Johnny and Brian Adams now are going to help him with some stuff. And because he is trying to be different, which again is rare, but your topic there, how much is our closed mind affecting us? It's a lot. And before we started taping, I said how much I have learned from Matt, Chad, and Temple because of where they farm, and it's different. I've learned to desiccate soybeans from Matt. That was a game changer for us. I've learned so much about dry fertilizer from Chad. I've learned so much about cover crops and balancing the crop because of the government regulation in the Chesapeake Bay. The three of them have really changed my outlook on farming. And I would tell you, what's it costing you? Probably 50%, because I look at how much I've learned from those other partners of XtremeAg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just tough to quantify how much your neighbor. I don't want to do, because I have neighbors next to farm and they do very well.
Yeah, right.
So I got to go miles down the road before I can really.
I'm being facetious, of course, when I talk about your neighbor that's judging all that, and you get along with your neighbors, and Kelly does too. And I get along with about half of mine, but it's it's fine. It's hard to quantify, is your point,
right?
But there's a lot of stuff that you're looking at. I'll give you an example. I'm in his part of the world. I just said this to his agronomist, Mike Evans, calibrated agronomy guy. I said, I was out there and I drove by and I saw half of a field washed into the ditch because they fall plowed it on 40% slopes. I said, you know what? That dumb son of a bitch blamed the weather. He thinks the reason his field washed away was because the kind of spring we had. Like, no, that spring's pretty much like every spring. It's you. And so to say that that's not costing him, well, what's a piece of farm ground? $12,000, $15,000 an acre, and you just degraded the value of it by letting it wash away?
Yeah.
You can quantify that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but everything's expensive, and he might have thought in my head, this is the only tool that I have. I'm going to do it. And that's the trouble we get into with the capital investment. But to, what we're learning is we really don't need it if we can use the cover crops or use strip wheat or something like that to take on the weather. But yeah.
You guys are both, to give you both compliments, you're not judgmental. You get judged, but you're not judgmental. You just said, well, whatever that guy, maybe that works for him. And you're very good about that. You don't judge others. You get judged.
I think that people get judged very harshly on social media because when the communication is in a written form, it seems to be the human nature to take it the wrong way. Mm. And the name of the movie escapes me, but I have learned to be curious, not judgmental. And I try to do that all the time.
There was a TV show, Ted Lasso.
There you go.
And usually it's Jason that's starting to reference obscure movies or actors.
Well, after Rick Moranis, I really wanted to come up with
going off of Kelly's point earlier, a lot of times the people that are the meanest on social media, if you reach out to them and have that heart-to-heart with them, they open up and they're actually good people. And a lot of times the meanness or that is really insecurity coming out.
It's insecurity
of how dare you think that there's a better way when my dad did it this way, the university says it this way, I've proven my farm does this way. So it's not like I think anyone's an idiot.
Yeah.
There's a
wait. You don't think anyone's an idiot?
There's a certain amount of people.
I can give you names.
There's a certain amount of people that think if you do something different, you were saying that they were wrong.
Right.
That's not true. We've learned more. Yeah. The decision you made at the time, with the experience and the technology you had at that time, let's give you the benefit of the doubt. That was the best decision. Yeah. But now what we have learned, there's a better way. It doesn't mean you were wrong. It means we learned more. And it needs to be taken in that context.
There's a sensitivity, as you said. And agriculture, I think, our producer Will and I talk about it. We find farmers to be much more sensitive than the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that?
Yeah. And the other thing is a lot of us are isolated. So when you shake things up a little bit, you can get pretty flustered.
How much does your closed mind cost you? I guess let's look at the other ones, because the person that's going to then say, it's easy for them to say sitting on a grain. Damian Mason doesn't even farm. Okay, we'll say that. True. Fine. You're accurate. But if I did, I would be a game B player, to reference a point that Jason made in the previous episode. I'd be a game B player because I would have to. I don't have the financial holdings. I don't have the agricultural capital to be a pure commodity producer. I would have to be on your pages of saying, you know what, Mauck did this, I'm going to try this crazy thing. I'd have to, because I think when you're a small player, you'd have to be that.
How much is your closed mind costing you? If I look at my own experiences, until a few years ago, I was wanting to go back to a 50-50 corn soybean rotation. I would have told you I wanted to shrink the cow herd because I believed that the cows were at best breaking even. I thought the soybeans were making money. We've talked about this, paying attention to the data, really looking at the numbers. The cows are making a lot of money and the soybeans were losing. So if we quantify that, and if I would have stayed closed-minded and not really researched that, it cost me a lot of money, a tremendous amount of money to do that. And that's my own experience.
And you wouldn't have been judged because that's what everybody would do. No, those cows are a lot of work. You got to be out there in the winter, day like today, pulling calves. Be a grain farmer. You've got the financial position to do that.
And we still would have been deemed successful because I don't believe that not making, now we're almost all corn, we're increasing the cow herd. If we hadn't done that, we still would have been deemed successful because I don't believe it would have made us fail, but we would have been less successful. And I really just want to reach my potential. I want to do as good as I can do.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to answer your question about closed mind, what does it cost us? I look at everything 3 to 5 years or even beyond that. And not having a closed mind allows you, for our operation, I plant, I spray, I side dress, I do about all the passes. So when I first came to the farm, I started just messing around with, all right, we're going to put half of the P&K on this field. We're going to reduce our nitrogen rate. We're going to play with the population. And you come back to all these kind of spectrum analysis to make the decision next year. But when you are forthright on social media and you share what you're doing, what happens is it unlocks everyone doing the same. So it's the direct messages of saying, I've done this, I had this experience. It's having a friend. I just showed my friend Zach Smith our chemical breakdown of we were going to switch programs to save some money. And because he had sold chemicals for 20 years, he came back and he saved us about $50,000 with the right person looking at that. And that's where it comes down to it. So it's not directly my closed mind cost me. It's the open mind of researching on your farm, understanding what strings you can pull and how hard, sharing that, and then having that gravity well of people to come in and help you. And that's what it comes down for me is, are we in this helping economy, sharing economy, or are we getting in this sold economy of being good conformists?
He brought this up in another episode. He's kind of got this whole sharing. There's a place down in Southern India called New Harmony. It was a communal experience 100 years ago. They starved. Just so you know how sharing in communism works, Jason. It doesn't always end up as
I'm not burning.
There's a few neighbors at home that we're really close with, and we're doing more and more together. A couple of them are my brother-in-laws. One's married to Amber's sister, one to mine. But there's another neighbor, and we do more and more together all the time. There really is strength in numbers.
Well, you bring up the thing about sharing, and I've pointed out to my ag crowds, I said, we're at 8% money right now, and these pieces of machinery are not getting cheaper. If you farm, not being me, but a few thousand acres is not a massively big farm anymore. You could have a lot of unnecessary money tied up. So you talk about open mind versus closed mind. If you told your father's no longer with us, let's just told, he still was, he'd say, listen, son, I need that combine. We need that combine. And you're sitting there saying, Dad, this is $670,000, even after a couple of years depreciation, tied up in this piece of equipment. No, we're gonna pool. That would take an open-minded person that's 70 years old to even think that way, because they've always thought, got to have those tools in the shed. Always had those tools. Grandpa had tools in the shed. I got tools in the shed.
Yeah, but that was tier 1, right? That was 40/20 that you just worked on a wrench and a screwdriver. It's not tier 5.
Doesn't have $60,000 of just electronics in the cab.
Yeah, and that's the come to Jesus that operations like us, 2,850 acres is going to come. We can't trade a planter, a sprayer, a combine, every 2 or 3 years and have that technology. We either got to size down, or keep things for 10 or 15 years.
Or collaborate with another operator.
And that's where you've got to kind of draw the lines in the sand. Am I going to chase this rabbit, getting the extra 2 bushel to have this perfect placement, but I need 14,000 acres to drag this piece of equipment to come across to pay for it? Of changing our paradigms to what is actually important.
Since you guys are not judgmental, I will be a little bit when I say this. There's lots of people that are closed-minded, but again, they're doing it, they're defensive, and they're masking it as playing it smart. I'm playing my cards smart. Well, maybe, but at some point you go from playing your smart cards to being defensive to now being closed to new ideas and new options. And their defense would be, well, neighbor guy tried that and it didn't work out for him, so that's why I won't do it. I mean, that's usually the default, right? The usual default is...
I think you can spin any message to make it sound like you're doing the right thing.
Johnny Varell, who's going to be here not too long from now with the Granary, says his grandpa's favorite statement was, a man can justify anything he wants to.
There you go.
The woman can too, presumably, but yeah. Justify anything you want to. Do you think you're going to get old and become more closed off to new ideas?
No, I will be...
You'll get more financially well off. The kids are going to be raised. You're going to look there and you're going to say, yeah, when I was 40, I'd have done this crazy ass thing. But you know what? Got some hay in the barn. I'm pretty comfortable. Done experimenting. You going to get there?
No. I mean, you know me. But I've seen a lot of control that I've had to deal with. If I give you an inch, they think they're going to give you a mile. And, my goal is to farm less and less and have more diversity, more life on the acres. And at that point, if I get my acres less and less and my acres are working more and more, then I don't have to have the control to be that asshole that says you can't change a thing or the farm's going to go broke.
We might edit that out, but we might not. I don't know. We're pretty open here. He just said something that I think in the history of being around farmers, I've never heard a farmer say it. I want to farm less acres someday. He just said that. Most farmers are ingrained. I think it's like they teach you when you're a little kid. If you're going to be a farmer, tell everybody how hard you work, what time you wake up, and I want to farm more acres. Those are the three things I think.
I want to continue to do better and better. And we've talked about this before. That's the difference between the finite game and the infinite game. I just want to have continued process improvement, which is really what he wants to have. I want to have process improvement as well. If the opportunity comes up to grow and we can handle it, then it's fine. I just want to continue to improve on the acres that we have. Doesn't mean I want more, doesn't mean I want less. I just want to continue to improve.
We farm on two different, we're both in the Midwest. He's Western Iowa. I'm around here, and you have population around there, but it's probably 2 to 3 to 4 times more dense around here.
Oh, absolutely.
It's at least 3 to 4 times more dense here than it is where he lives.
So when you get up to 3,000 acres, I just did all our fields, and we farm about 90 fields to do that.
Yeah.
And
you drive through 7 neighborhoods to get to those fields and all that. We've got our XtremeAg friends, Johnny Varell's in a very population dense area. Kevin is, and Chad is.
And Temple, all of them.
And Temple are, yeah. You're arguably the one that's not that way. So that's one of your reasons why you want to farm less?
Yeah, because if you think in a Pareto system, and I say, this is my most profitable acre where I have all my pig barns, and then I can drag line the acres, I make 10 times more on that acre than I do on the bottom 20%. And if I go to the bottom of the 20 and the 20%, there's no reason I should farm it. So if I want to grow my farm, I'm going to have to pay additional for non-coveted ground, and it doesn't make any sense in the financial scape that we are right now.
Those bottom 20% of the acres are the ones I'm trying to put cows on.
Exactly.
And if you don't have the cows, you could let them go and probably be better off to do so.
Right.
Most people don't have the mindset. Again, you know about closed-minded. Well, you let acres go, the next thing you know, you'll lose some more acres. Or you let those acres go, you'll never grow. Or
the reason people always want to grow is because they think they need to grow to make more money. Let's improve the quality. Let's do better and not have to do more. That's all he's trying to do. And that is really the correct way to think. There's more money to make if you want to manage more intensively, but it's not the typical mindset. It's my mindset.
The big trouble around here, we have high C grounds, heavy clay. And quite frankly, there's really only 2 or 3 or 4 great days to plant corn. You're usually mudding the other ways.
We usually have a moisture problem.
So that's where I get irritated when we farm a bunch. I do this uncrustable mindset where I do farms that I don't really care about too much a day early to get everything set up. And then I don't sleep for 2 days. And I get absolutely everything in at the exact same time. And when I get ragged and outside of that, then I start making mistakes. And quite frankly, a lot of people won't like this statement, but a lot of us farm too much to be able to do everything exactly how we want to.
Yeah, you're doing more than you're doing a C grade. You're getting a 70% on all your, and you would do a lot better if you were 95, 100% on lesser.
Yes. And the problem with that is now I have a 120-foot planter, or even I got a 60-foot planter. It's too big to be a lot of times. But I go to the edge of the field, I back up and I turn, and I do that on 5 different pieces of equipment in the same exact spot. And we're just packing the crap out of our stuff. And you can call me old school, but I think all of our stuff should weigh more like 10 or 20,000 pounds.
So you are kind of old school, by the way. And you and I both agree 1,000,000% on that. I think equipment needs to get smaller. About closed mind versus open mind. Farmers always want to get bigger, and they want to own lots of machinery. And I think those are both not necessarily good business decisions.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like we were able to, we came out of 10, 11, 12. We had a spike. We had a lot of equity in the system, and these older farmers, we were able to trade in these big toys, and that's going to be the hard thing in the next years to come.
All the way up, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 16 was very, very good economically. Yeah. And since then, it has been, it's been a little bit tougher.
So there's going to be, of course, the person that says, yeah, well, all your stuff that you've done, a bunch of it has, what's your ratio? What's your percentage? You can say, I'm always trying new stuff. I'm very open-minded. Well, they don't all work out. Chad, our friend Chad, always says, I've never had a failure, just had experiments that didn't work out.
That's right.
What's your ratio?
Of
wins. What's your how many of your crazy out there, way open-minded, innovative ideas, experiments have been hits, and how many of them have been duds?
Most of them have been fantastic. We had a drier summer last year, so some of our relay acres didn't perform up to my expectations.
And to the person listening to this that says, hey, I'm a cranberry producer in Wisconsin, what the hell's he talking about? What's a relay acre?
So a relay acre is we plant early corn on purpose. So we plant 108 day corn somewhere in there. We shell it 20%, and then we plant wheat in strips in September. And we're basically planting about 30 to 40% of the wheat population in strips. We're planting about half the fertility, half the nitrogen. And because the ground is warmer where the wheat isn't, and the plants get more sunlight, we can drive about 89% of the wheat yields in the strips. So then we plant soybeans.
You get 80% of a normal expected yield and only doing that on 50% of the property?
Yeah, even less than that, more like 35% footprint.
Okay.
So we're planting 15-inch wheat, and we leave a 30-inch gap.
Yeah.
And this year we're planting 3 rows of beans, 7 inches apart in that gap, really early. As soon as it dries out in April, we plant a really late maturing bean, and we allow that to. And if we get a lot of rain, they will out yield our monocrop beans, because the wheat kind of takes the grenade of those 2 or 3 inch rains that will kill the root hair.
And you're harvesting the wheat off. I mean, I know this, but the person listening to this doesn't, watching this does not. You're harvesting that wheat off, and you're driving over your soybeans in July to do that.
No, we're driving down the rows of wheat. So we've been 60-inch wheat in the past with 4 rows and 4 rows for traffic lanes. And now we made tram line rows with our wheat, and we'll be a 40-foot controlled traffic.
Okay.
So our combine goes right out there, and then our beans are R2. So they're up about 18 inches tall, and then they zip right back in.
Mm-hmm.
So our idea is to get the wheat growing well. We lay a residual down ahead of a rain in March or April, and then canopy takes over, and our weed control on our beans, instead of burn down in the fall, post, or burn down in the spring, then a couple posts, we're getting way ahead of it with our corn trash.
Yep.
So we're growing 20-inch corn at high population, 40-inch, and we're using the residual chemistry and the trash of the corn as our weed control, getting the weed up, and then we just get out ahead of it to where we're not killing weeds with our beans.
You like this talk?
Yeah.
You gonna do something like this? By the way, when you harvest the wheat, you're blowing the straw out. It blows on top of the soybeans, but doesn't shade them or.
Yeah, the beans are they're in adolescent growth stage, so they'll just shake it off, and then they have the whole light to themselves.
I do like this because it's a way for us in the northern latitude to accomplish a double crop.
A double crop.
Yes.
You don't do it because of erosion. He's got 40% slopes on some of his fields. You've got 4%. You don't have any. Your ground's mostly all flat.
He's just doing.
You're doing it because of biology and economics.
Right.
Economics drives everything. I would be interested to try some of this. He talked about the twin 60-inch rows of corn and the cover crops in between. Maybe I should try it with some wheat. And you're planting the wheat in June and July, you said, to get more fall growth?
We want to try that this year, put it inside our corn strips to see if we can alleviate. So that's the problem with me, is I'm trying
planting wheat in the summer. What's the thing that we told us as kids, the fly free something? There was some kind of a fly or something supposed to not.
The fly is not really around anymore.
What was the thing when I was a kid? You couldn't plant until frost free date, right?
Right.
Wait until October 7th.
So they found in Asia that they call it root intensification. And if they would sprig their rice and plant it super early, bigger sprigs, then the laws of exponential math would take over, and your tiller continues to grow. So that's the whole play. As we reduce, we're going to try planting in our corn strips and have the corn a little bit wider to allow just enough light to keep it kind of pacified. So when we shell off the corn now, instead of 100-day corn or 104-day corn that we may give up 5 or 10 bushel, we can go 117-day corn, let it sit out in the field, and we already have our wheat there. And that's the cool, calm feeling of relay cropping. Normally, when you're double cropping, you're trying to run your wheat the first day that it's ready, or drying it to speed up the process. I can allow those crops to grow because I've got a wheat just drying.
You lose your mind and you don't sleep for 2 days to get your corn planted all within 48 hours of time, but you let your wheat stand around until sometime when it's past its.
When it's dry.
When it's ready, instead of pushing it.
Yeah.
You have to push the planting, but he doesn't have to push the harvest.
Yeah. I can go.
He's getting 3 crops in 2 years, just like Chad and Johnny. However,
he's doing it
there's an overlap. Yes, there's an overlap.
The whole trick to the whole relay cropping is I am planting something on purpose to aggressively grow, knowing that it will die. knowing, and we keep pushing the maturity back some on the wheat earlier to make it die earlier, but you'll see it in the beans. As soon as it starts turning yellow, even if we're dry, the beans just start growing better and better and better as you're taking the amperage pull down out of the situation.
You're spending considerably less on fertility and still not sacrificing yield.
Exactly. We're just replacing with time.
Well,
wealth is just a matter of persistence and time.
You just share. He keeps getting deeper and deeper, doesn't he?
That was pretty deep.
Yeah, but we are.
Wealth is equals persistence plus time.
So there's no way around the corn deal. Like, I can't just make up time. Like, there's only going to be 2 days. So the way I stretch that is I
Stay up
mess
all
around
night.
with stuff when I don't think it's perfect, and then I really kill it. But other things, you actually can create time by doing 2 days.
Jason Mauck called me this winter. He was doing a speaking engagement, and he was like driving after he'd been on stage. He's driving. You just did that yesterday, and he called, and I said, "What's going on?" He says,
One side.
I said, "When do you get tired of this shit?" I said, "Tired of what?" It's like beating the road. And I said, "Oh, because it was neat the first few years you did it, and now it's supposed to be like work."
Oh.
And you're out there also, you're sharing all of your crazy ideas to half of your audience is probably sitting there like this. So I don't have as much of a skeptical audience. The road can grind on you. Being on stage is work. But also, at least my audience is generally not crossing their arms and saying, "Oh, this guy's full of crap." You probably have half your audience that folds their arms and thinks you're out there.
Yes,
Yeah, but the other half doesn't.
yesterday I had a few that crossed their arms. They were skeptical. When I told them that pH wasn't relevant, worry about the nutritional balance, pH will be fine. I always lose a few people when you say things like that because worrying about pH is a pretty accepted practice. Those are the things, yes, people can be skeptical when you're outside the box.
And if you wonder what makes us tick, it's when you're in the field and you have that aha moment and you know before anyone else. Isn't that
That's
cool? And when you're doing all this stuff and you're going out there and you're seeing how different shocks or different weather events affect your crops and you think you're onto something, I mean, that's the whole reason why we do this.
So you get excited. You get excited. It's when you're an innovator and you're open-minded and you pride yourself on not being closed-minded.
Yeah.
So when something works, when it's like, by God, I pulled this.
That moment when it changes from something you think to something you feel you know, that's a good feeling.
And these people right here, those are the people in the interstate with cruise control going 56 miles an hour. Right?
Yeah. So I do know that. So I just think it's also funny that you called me because you were beating the road, and then it started to dawn on you that that it's work beating the road, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What's one of your biggest things that the relay farming, all that? What's one of your biggest things that you had to actually sell yourself on it because you were like, this is so innovative and open-minded, I'm almost scared of it myself? Give me one. You have more than one? You got one, Kelly?
First time we desiccated soybeans.
You thought, this is crazy.
We've spent all year trying to make these things grow, and now we're going to kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, that was. I was worried about that.
Killing your crop of soybeans.
Not putting on the MAP and the potash because we were going to switch to plant food on every acre. When I signed the check for the drip irrigation, all of those things.
Which you're going to be doing soon.
No, we'll see. We'll see if it pencils out. But
you've got a means of then using your hog manure, and all of a sudden that lowers your fertility spend, and there's a lot of reasons to justify.
No more drag.
And you have to go out there and
that is definitely could pay over the years.
When we turn the anhydrous down, our nitrogen is way low relative.
One thing I want to share about relay cropping, he talks about desiccating soybeans and speeding up harvest and not taking the horsepower and wear and tear on the combine. When I harvest regular wheat, so we're planting 3 times the seed, more nitrogen to get it to make 110, 120 your fungicide. And it takes a lot of horsepower. So we're running the combine, a mile and a half, 2 miles, 2.5, where it goes down. When I do the relay thing, we're changing the ratio in the plant where all the leaves are viable.
Yep.
So my heads are bigger. I get more rows around. So I can actually run the combine 5 or 6 miles an hour at 40 feet running relays, changing things. And that's the interesting thing with all this relay cropping. If you can grow 2 crops in the same year, or if you can raise corn and cattle in the same year, you're willing, if you're able to index nitrogen in twin 60-inch corn, and let's say you can do it for 30 pounds less nitrogen, maybe a little less seed, let's say it yields 5 bushel less. Well, if you get $75 in value in your cattle going across. We've now changed the math. And this is what it all comes down to, is taking the pressure off of maxing the one thing, introducing two entities to now we can play these Pareto distribution synergies.
Diversification of revenue, but you didn't have to do it by buying two convenience stores. You did it on the same acre you already tried.
And the whole thing with wheat, for me, I had a landscape business and I kept going. I just still plowing snow until 2 years ago. And when I was younger, I used to go gamble quite a bit. And there's a few times that I put the rent check out there and I didn't have it. And we had to fume our way back. But it was some deep lessons about mathematics on the craps table. And I look at wheat as the craps table. If it snows, I get in my truck and make money. If the sun comes up and it's 50, then the wheat grows. So it's black or red. And a lot of things that I do is in this black and red mentality of who gives a shit if it doesn't go my way. Let's position ourselves to where I have something else that creates value in this situation. We always need to be growing.
You just told Kelly about your penchant for gambling. He would gamble on whether this table is made of wood. I mean, he gambles on.
I love to play craps.
The
only thing better than playing craps is playing poker.
He likes to gamble.
I don't anymore.
It's really the question. I said, how much your closed mind costs you? It could also be how much is your open mind making you, and that's where you've got the innovative approach. You're going to have some duds. You're going to have some turds. You've had some turds.
Yes. Like the people that don't want to be innovative, though, and I've said this before, when you try something, very rarely is it a 10 out of 10. But very rarely is it a 0 out of 10.
Yeah, right.
Most of the times it's a 6 or a 7.
There's gleaning something.
It's a 6 or a 7, and then it evolves. The idea that it's going to work the first time, that's not. But it's not. It's not. You use black. I would say it's not. This is not a black and white scenario. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's not a 0 out of 10. It's going to evolve. You're going to learn things. You're going to get better and more efficient. But don't give up. And the first year is not going to be a home run, but the second year and the third year could be, because it'll evolve.
And that's the whole point of the FAFO, the framework of that. So to share, like this year we have 14 relay fields. We're scaling that up even more. But last year we had 6. And every field that I went into, I changed the gate setting on the drill when I was planting my wheat. And we did a field that was dragline with manure. On the other side of the ditch, I wanted to grow really good beans. So I shut the gate down way past 20, and I only planted about 250,000 wheat seeds per acre, which is, if you ask an agronomist, that's just losing your mind, because they want 2 million.
Right, that's low.
And then the other part of the field, it was out by the road. I thought I'd make a little fluffier wheat, and I doubled it to about, I think I had 550, 600. Well, that wheat looked great, and I got a lot of attaboys. Oh, that looks great. Well, what happened was we got like an inch of rain in May. June was hot. So the wheat was slightly better, but the beans took it kind of in the chin, and they barely made 50 in that field. Where I choked it back, the wheat was about 10 back, but the beans were 25 bushel better. And if you can try all these things with all these different iterations while you're trying it, but when you make these experiments and you do a lot of different iterations, you'll figure out that if it wasn't exactly in the thing that I did, it was exactly how I did it in the cards that were dealt in this season. And it's understanding the spectrums and understanding what you're going to do. It's how smart you make your moves is the value in doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, just because it worked perfectly this year, next year is going to be different. You're right. There's value in changing those populations all the time.
Jason, you said that there's, you go on the road and you talk about this. You're on social media talking about this. Is it rewarding? It's rewarding when you see your innovation come to fruition. Is it rewarding when other people adopt it?
Oh, tremendously. That is my favorite part. I was in Colorado in 22, and I sat in a room. They said, this guy's doing it in Colorado. I sat in the back, and he did the presentation. And to a T, he had the pads. He took the duals off the John Deere, and he's talking about going to the FSA office and doing the acres.
Yeah.
So to share that story, when you go to the FSA and you're doing wheat and soybeans, they don't have a box for that. So if you're doing 500 acres, you're doing 250 acres of wheat, 250 acres of soybeans. Well, he had scaled it up over the years, and he was getting 95 to 100% yield of both crops. Being in Colorado, he has 100-degree days. He's got a pivot irrigation.
I was going to say, it doesn't get much water, so he has to irrigate or he's going to dry land.
Yeah. And he had massive success. And he's going out and telling people. And as I travel all these different states, you're finding all these people that are doing it in a different iteration in their context. And that's why we started Farm Weird. And not to compete with XtremeAg, but it's the same idea. You know,
You're not. You're
let's
collaborating.
learn together.
You're collaborating. It's called open-minded, or I call it Mauck-minded, as in Jason Mauck-minded. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. His name is Jason Mauck, Delaware County farmer, about 50 miles south of here, and a good dude and a friend of the XtremeAg Granary. You know what? You're a friend also, so make sure you always pull up a chair right here, figuratively, and join us for these conversations. We've got episodes all over the place. We want you to check them out. Go to extremeag.farm. Also go to YouTube, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you on there. Kelly Garrett of XtremeAg, Jason Mauck, Indiana farmer and innovator, and very open-minded, innovative guy. So we're happy to have you here. Until next time, cheers from the Granary.